Hello, I'm Monica.
And I'm Arcadius.
Hello, I'm Father Colin Patey, and this is my wife Cindy.
I am David Laws.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Alexandra.
Hi everyone, my name's Lucy.
And I'm Greg.
Hello, we're David and Louise, and we've been married 43 years.
We were married on April the 12th, 1975, 50 years ago, in the little church where I'd worshipped for many years and sung in the choir.
Exhibit A.
We've been married for 18 years now.
Alexandra is our firstborn child.
One of 7.
We have 5 children, grown-up children. Our oldest is 40 years old and our youngest is 26. And we also have 2 grandchildren as well.
We have 2 sons, Stephen and Michael. Stephen is a maths teacher in Milton Keynes, married to Carmen. They have 1 son, Luca. Michael, a Catholic priest, is at present chaplain to Downside Benedictine School in Somerset.
We were married on the 25th of April 1987, so that makes us 38 years married, will that?
Makes me old.
We've been married for 2 years and
3 months.
3 months. 4 months.
3.5 months.
3.5 months. And
2 years, 3.5 months.
Yeah, not that we're counting. And we have a 1-year-old called Xavier, who's currently asleep. So sorry if this is a bit all over the place because it's past his bedtime and our bedtime.
What is your favourite memory of your wedding day?
Time spent with the family just after the ceremony.
I have lots of memories of our wedding day, all different aspects of it. But I don't have one favourite. It's just a big coming together of all different parts. There's the before part, there's the service part, there's the garden party, there's the dinner. There's so many parts to it. I have snippets.
I was an Anglican curate at the time in a tough parish on Tyneside. It was a very different place from the beautiful village in North Oxfordshire where we were married.
Our reception was in the local village hall. My dad was a key member of the committee that raised the money to build it. I wore a beautiful second-hand dress and spent very little on hairdo or makeup. The whole day was much simpler than the lavish weddings that we have attended in recent years.
Definitely the Mass. It's just one of the most beautiful Masses I've ever been to. We were really fortunate in that lots of my friends came and sang, and we had a beautiful, beautiful choir and lots of servers. When it got to the offertory, we went into the sanctuary and then there was a kneeler set out for us, and we just knelt there for the rest of Mass. And what was amazing is that we'd done all of the start of Mass, all of the kind of hustle and bustle of our wedding day, and then when it got to the most important part of the Mass, just after we'd been committed to each other in marriage, we were just able to just be there at Mass, and in almost like the rest of the day just kind of zoned itself out. All of the planning, everything else just kind of really shut itself out, and we were in that moment able to just really enter into Mass and start marriage in that way, which is really, really, really beautiful.
I was going to say is when, we were just facing the altar and it was the consecration, and it was amazing because we were facing the Lord, we couldn't see anyone else, and it just felt like such an intimate moment with Jesus, and we were so close. It was the closest I'd ever been to the consecration, kneeling on the sanctuary. And it did just feel amazing, and the Lord was just saying, I've brought you here.
It's that final moment where once you've been married, so obviously your life dating is getting to know each other, and you're starting to become sort of you're sort of like turning into each other. And then there's that moment where you get married, and then you're at mass, and it's that final moment where there's like, you know, you two become a unified couple that are like blessed by God in that mass, and then you turn around and face the world again as a married couple, as one flesh.
Yeah, and for me it was the time that we had together in front of the altar, praying in silence, thanking God for the fact that we are now married couple.
One other thing that I loved was we got married in October, and we decided to have like the drinks reception before the main like food reception outside, because we had too many people to fit in the hall. And we prayed about it, and I just felt the Lord say, the sun's going to shine, it's going to be fine. But we didn't really have a plan B. And the morning of the wedding, it was raining, and like driving to the
torrential rain, not just
like when I was driving to the church, it was like really raining. But to be honest, at that point there was like peace. I was like, oh, I'll just work out. But then it was incredible. Like as we came out at the end of mass, like the sun had come out, and it was just like blue skies, like a clear autumnal day, and then it was sunny the rest of the day, and that was amazing. I just felt like it was like the Lord just keeping his promise. And then it was just such a fun party. Like we just had all our friends and family, we had a Kaylee, and it was just such a joyful day.
And a churros fan, that was great.
And a churros fan. So yeah.
But it's just that being there with your family for a whole day is just absolutely wonderful. Like there's something about like marriage is family, and you're just sort of like entering into marriage with all of your family there. And I've got like a ton of nephews and nieces, so they were all there. And it was just such like life in the day. Like it was just such a joy-filled life, fulfilling day, and just a perfect way to start marriage, really.
Yeah.
I suppose the thing that was most wonderful, apart from getting married that day, was the fact that we invited absolutely everybody that we wanted to be there. I think that was so special that we were able to do that. We had 200 people, something like that, and it was wonderful. It was just great. So we didn't have to go through the whole process of picking who we're going to come and who we're going to leave out. We just invited everyone, and it was joyous.
We both see marriage as our vocation. Nothing mattered more on our wedding day than the promises we made to each other in front of our family and friends.
Has anyone or anything in particular helped you on your journey? Well, we started out our journey together by doing a lot of reading, a lot of understanding about what marriage was about, and particularly in a Catholic context, that led us to the need to learn about natural family planning. The first source of information we found on that was actually a nun, which may sound a bit odd, and there's a whole story there, but she introduced us to Engaged Encounter. Engaged Encounter introduced us to the Couple to Couple League, another way of learning NFP, which fitted more in with how we saw our marriage. And we also remained involved in the Marriage Encounter movement.
To me, it's definitely reading some books about marriage, and also the time we spent in teams of Our Lady.
Yeah, I think we had very good examples of very wise couples that actually published books on marriage, and they really impacted our marriage life.
Yeah.
And then the fact that we joined domestic church and now Teams of Our Lady, and we've got a constant spiritual guidance from a priest.
Yeah,
I think it really helps us.
More recently, we've become involved in Teams of Our Lady in this diocese. So around this is a community, a whole series of other married couples who have lived out their lives in this way and have been inspirational to us.
The community in Sydney Absolutely. The formation that we had in our faith, particularly, and just in how we live out our lives, whether we're married or single or whatever, was just second to none. It was brilliant, and we still abide by lots of the things that we learned then.
That's right.
Many years ago, we took part in a marriage encounter weekend in the Wye Valley.
It was very late when we arrived, and I remember seeing an owl in the headlights as we drove along a dark lane.
It was at a time when life was hectic, and it was good to have a whole weekend with lots of time to listen to each other built into the programme.
It's also been a source of strength to us that we've, belonged to our local Catholic parish, and that we go to Mass on Sunday together. And that's been a constant throughout our marriage, and a very important part of how we've grown together. I think the grace that we receive, when we get married through the sacrament of matrimony, is an ongoing important thing that we can draw on.
All sorts of teaching, lots of really fantastic foundation. We are just so blessed through our first 4.5 years, something like that. We lived in community with that intense support, and then
And before we
that's right. Before we were married, we were when we were dating and when we were engaged, it was lived out in community, and it was we couldn't ask for a better foundation.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
There's a word we haven't used yet, or a person we haven't mentioned yet. If anyone in particular has helped us on our journey, then really that's been God, who has given us so much grace through our sacrament, through our Catholic life, and through the other married couples who have been so helpful to us in our journey.
Our shared faith is perhaps our greatest support. I see Cindy as God's gift to me, and feel we continue to receive grace from the sacrament we celebrated 50 years ago.
What advice would you give your younger selves?
None. The journey is the journey, and everything, the good things and the bad things and the struggles, the joy, all of it is part of the journey, and it's part of what builds your marriage and makes it what it is, what it could become. And I think you have to live through all of it, but it's your faith that brings you through.
Just take the next step. I think we both have a tendency, I think that's fair to say, to maybe overthink. Would you say that's fair? I mean, I definitely do. And I think particularly in dating, it was like trying to take 20 steps at once, of like trying to see into the future. And I think, and this may come up in another question, but before we were dating, I heard a friend who has a beautiful marriage and we're good friends with now. She was giving a talk at a retreat, and she said that relationships like a triangle. So you have you and your spouse at the bottom of the triangle and God at the top. And the closer you get to God, the closer you get to each other. And that has always stuck with me. I should tell her that stuck with me.
I would say that you need patience and courage.
Yes.
And you need to be connected to the real life, which is church, and give yourself fully to God as a couple.
You have to put God at the centre of it to keep building it.
Yeah, it's a fundamentally important part of my faith journey, really. I think being at the centre. I am certainly the man I am today, largely because of being married to you. and being in this family, I think.
We've been really blessed, over that period of time that we were dating, that we had good people around us, that we were praying every day, and therefore God was always gonna sort it out. And so I think just trusting that you just take the next step in front of you, and to not worry about the logistics.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to forgive yourself and others, and also be able to adapt to different situations, because life is going to surprise you with many different ways, whether it's children or something else. You're always going to be surprised, so be ready to adapt.
When I went to seminary and then left seminary, I was then when I was at university, I kind of kept having this sort of anxiety that my life was so behind everyone else's, because it took me about 3 years to apply for seminary, get seminary, leave seminary, and then get to university. So I was starting university when a lot of my friends from school were graduating, and I was like, what have I done? I've wasted 3 years of my life, and now I'm starting 3 years behind. But actually, I gained so much from going to university when I did, because I was slightly more mature, and I approached it, I think, much more differently to how I would have had I gone to university at 19. And then, I'd seen my brother getting married at 21, and there was me at 21 starting university, and I was like, I need to be married now. Something needs to have happened. Everyone seems to have been. I'm missing the boat. And then actually, the time in seminary was really valuable for me. The time at university was really valuable for me. The time after university, where I was doing various things, singing around in various places in the country, it's all really valuable. And then, in the right time, God put Lucy before me, and then that was that time where actually I was ready for it then, because I'd done all of that other stuff. So trying to just enjoy those things that you do as much as possible. And I think it was interesting. It almost came at a time where I was I just kind of was happy to either go back to seminary or meet someone and get married. But I was completely I wasn't trying to push for something and then if the perfect solution dropped into my lap, kind of, as it were, and it was, having spent so long trying to make everything happen, it was when I let go that actually that's when the real perfection in my life started.
I remember before getting married having this fear. How could I give myself wholly to God and wholly to you? Because I was working for the church and was in a really good place in my faith, and just loved the Lord having all of my heart. I just couldn't quite work out how I was gonna give him all of my heart and give my husband all of my heart. Maybe that sounds silly, but I don't know, I remember that being a worry. But again, what my mentor said to me, which really stuck with me, and she said that Greg will reveal in a human way, in an imperfect way, but he will reveal more and more to you the love of God. He's called to embody Christ to you. And you have so far. I think I'm learning more about God's faithfulness, about God's peace, about God's character through you. I think in particular the way that you've sacrificed for us, for your family, and your faithfulness, I think reveals a lot about who God is. So yeah, I think seeing God through you, that's grown my faith.
I feel like it developed mine because it taught me real love. It's not as beautiful as some of the romantic movies show. It also includes sacrifice and the fact that you serve others. And through this serving, you get closer to others, and most importantly to God.
It's the ordinariness of life, and how like the ordinariness of married life and family life is like so beautiful, and it's like a cause for so much gratitude. That's just sort of, it's almost just confirmed, like it's confirmed my faith in that everything I believed and still believe up to the point of marriage is just kind of brought out in a sort of beautiful way. And all of the church's teaching on the family, the church's teaching on marriage, the church's teaching on, you name it, there's almost a kind of confirmation of that through marriage and through living the life that God's called you to.
For me is that the prayer is definitely different. You're not alone in this. Someone is always praying for you, even if you are down and you're not feeling like praying. You know that someone is always praying for you, and that's the way you take each other and you pull each other towards God. The amount of patience you need to each other. And it definitely isn't the same as you see from other couples, so it's your own story, definitely.
Yes, it's easier not to compare yourself to others. Find your own path as a couple.
I think the thing that has surprised me, and I don't know why it was a surprise, but like just how like peaceful it like is, and how much that peace grows, and how like even when you're in the midst of having a baby and the baby's not sleeping and things like that, and like the more you sort of enter into marriage with each other, like that peace is and like that way of life just kind of grows and grows. And like through marriage, like through like committing to each other and sort of just putting your lives together in such a sort of radical way, that peace of marriage just shines forth more and more through what you're doing. And I think it's just partly because it's blessed every day. Like the Lord wants you as a married couple to like flourish and thrive, and there will be challenges and things like that as you go through that married life, but he does want like peace and flourishing. And when you like just commit yourself to that, your marriage is the most important thing, then like God willing, and through God's grace it grows in that peace.
That's really nice.
50 years of married life have provided many surprises. Our first married home was a council flat on a big Jarrow overspill estate, part of the parish where I was an Anglican curate.
The straight talk of the friendly Geordie folk could seem challenging to two soft southerners. Our first son Stephen was born there in the early hours of a snowy morning.
I had to study some years before I was let loose in a parish. We had no such preparation for becoming parents, with the joys and challenges that brings.
When I was pregnant with Stephen, Colin came home from a meeting one evening and told me that the parish was short of money and we'd have to move at short notice. This was one of the two scariest moments in our married life. Mercifully, they did the sums again and found we could stay.
Church of England clergy are not bound to a diocese like Catholic priests are, so my next post was as a curate in Weymouth, where Michael was born on a hot, sunny July day. My vicar had just had a heart attack, So that brought its own challenges.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I think it surprised me how good it is. Not that I was expecting it to be bad, but I think we, because we hadn't lived together before, there was this like almost narrative that it was going to be really hard. Like we were going to get married and it was going to be this like really difficult adjustment and all of these things. And obviously there are like...
It was an adjustment.
Like there obviously are the practicalities. But I think what I actually wasn't prepared for is how like fun it would be and good. And also how different marriage would be to dating. Like it was, and still, and like that grows. I feel like it feels like more and more, and we're only 2 years in.
After Weymouth, we moved north again as Colin became vicar of Grimethorpe, a mining parish. We moved into a vast, cold vicarage and were relieved when a new manageable one was built.
I was at Grimethorpe during the miners' strike of 1984 and 1985. Not easy. My last Anglican post was as a hospital chaplain in Leicestershire.
Then I became a Catholic, and Colin soon followed my good example. This was the other scary moment in our married life, with loss of job, income and home. But God has provided, and neither of us has regretted coming home to the Catholic Church.
It felt pretty natural, like early on, like you do just kind of like enter into life together. Yeah. But I think just as time goes on, you know, obviously we knew each other really well before we got married, but like when you're actually setting up that life together and you've like just, you know, you've gone all in, over that time, the way of life just becomes more and more established. I remember in spiritual direction, like I was like, you know, saying, oh, like, you know, it's just my prayer life had like changed or something, and I remember him saying like marriage is an adjustment, like it is you know, you're not living the life that you were before. And it did take a bit of getting used to, but actually like once you kind of enter into that new life, and you know, no matter what your, you know, past experiences are, obviously you bring all of that into your marriage, and that does shape your marriage, but it is sort of made new in the way that you both are committed to each other, like completely. And yeah, as you know, because it's such an adjustment, it does take that time to kind of really establish and like, you know, grow through, you know, that daily, you know, watering, feeding, all of that. If you know, if your marriage is like a plant, that daily watering and feeding is what helps it grow and flourish, and establish its roots and foundations.
How did you know that marriage was or is in your vocation? Is it still in your vocation?
Well, I just always knew God was calling me to marriage. I just knew.
Yeah, I had, when we got married, I think I'd only been, although I was brought up as a Catholic, I was a cradle Catholic, I had only been back at church for 3 years, I think, just 3 years. And I don't think I'd even considered alternatives to marriage. I don't know that I don't feel, I wasn't thinking, oh yes, God is calling me to marriage. I just didn't consider any alternative. We were in this intensely Catholic environment, but yeah.
So if he was calling you, you didn't hear?
Yeah, well, I wasn't asking either. It wasn't me at the time. Yeah, I don't think so. But I've never questioned it. I never thought, never ever, it even crossed my mind.
I mean, for me, it was while reading those books, something definitely told me that this is something I want to pursue. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, when I was a child, I really prayed for a good husband with some exact characteristics like blonde hair, blue eyes, and the fact that he should be playing guitar. And then I thought about becoming a nun, but in the end, when I met my future husband, I knew it was him.
I think a lot of it came from our reading of what the church taught about marriage, and the whole ideal that it put before us. So talking about that as a couple and how we saw our lives developing, that was important, as well as all of the marriage preparation that we did.
So I had, as a child, always loved the idea of marriage and loved the idea of being a mum. But when I was about 14, felt a call to religious life, so to become a religious sister. And from that age, on and off, I went back and forth with discerning religious life. And I went to Leeds University, where the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal were. And I used to go to their prayer group, and I did discern with them. So that was kind of in the back of my head. And when Greg and I started dating, I then did a mission year. And on that year, I was really going back and forth of, is God calling me to marriage? Is God calling me to religious life? Should I end things with Greg? Like all of this was going through my head, which was quite stressful. And a conversation which brought so much clarity for me was from one of the women on my mission team. And she was saying to me, don't end it with Greg. Don't end it with Greg. And I was like, why? Because it takes quite a lot of confidence to say something like that. I was like, why are you saying that? And she's like, you never speak about that with peace. She was like, whenever you talk about ending things with Greg, it's from a place of fear or overwhelm or confusion. She was like, the only time you speak about peace with your vocation is when you talk about marriage. And that coincided with a conversation with my mentor, where she just said, what do you want? She said, do you want to marry Greg? And this smile came over my face and this joy, and I was like, yeah, I do. And she's like, great, like, praise God for that, that's that sorted. And I was like, really? And she said, yeah. She said, God isn't a God who plays tricks with you. She said, Luce, God isn't a confusing God. She said, if you want to do God's will and you are living in a state of grace, so you are going to the sacraments, you're receiving the sacraments, you're going to confession, you're going to mass, you are striving with every part of you to live by church teaching, and you want to do God's will, she's like, you will do God's will. Like, it's that simple. You will be doing his will if you're living in a state of grace and you want to do his will. And she said, so you can trust this, like, what you want in this situation, and you want to marry Greg. The thought of that brings you joy, it brings you peace. That's from the Lord. And I think it just gave me this permission to, and it allowed me to see God in his real loving fatherly way of, oh, actually God wants me to be joyful and he wants me to be happy. And it's not like, oh, I really want to get married, so therefore God's definitely not calling me to get married. No, that's absolutely not it. And I think, sorry, I'll just round this up when I finish, but I think then just praying about what was the vision that God had for my life, And what was the way I felt God was calling me to get to heaven, because that's, you know, that is your vocation from vocare, like to call, what are you being called to? We're called to heaven, and how was God going to get me to heaven? Through marriage, and through marriage to Greg. Please God, you'll get me to heaven. But yeah, so it wasn't a straight path for me, but I think having really good people around who were helping me discern God's voice, and just to remind me of who God was, that he's a loving father and that he's not going to trick you.
Yeah, and that concept of vocation that was put before us became something very real, and it sort of tied into how we saw ourselves and our own lives, I think. That we did sense that this was a call. It wasn't just our decision. It was, you know, it was something that we needed to do. We were being asked to do and asked to take forward.
I mean, I'd say mine was even less straightforward than yours in a way. I always used to love serving growing up as a child, and like loved church, I had a really great parish priest who was just such an authentic example of priesthood, and a beautiful example of priesthood. And I just, like, in my late teens, I felt called to go to seminary, and had a really fantastic year and a half in seminary, and it was beautiful, but for some reason it just didn't, I just wasn't happy. I didn't sit entirely well with me, but it was like such a good formation for me at that time, in prayer, in like maturity, like so many things I kind of experienced in that time in seminary. And then I felt called to leave, and it then was a bit unclear really for me for a long while. I was sort of like unsure really as to like what like God was leading me to. But I think God like puts the things in front of you that he wants to put in front of you to make things obvious. And I think at a time when I was actually thinking about potentially going back to seminary, I was still sort of unsure. Lucy, who I had known for many years because we were family friends for a long time, just happened to sort of like come into my life at the exact right time, and well, I mean, sort of re-come into my life at the exact right time, and it just felt right. I was like, well, I think we should start dating, and then like, you know, pretty soon after, I just thought, this is it. I think we're called to marriage. And in some ways there was like, even while we were dating and things, I was still sort of like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? And then actually you kind of just have to trust a bit. And then actually over time and over, you know, during the 2.5 years we've been married, you're like, oh yeah, no, you just get more and more confirmed in that kind of, in that vocation. And I think just trusting, like, God wants the best for you. He wants the best for your life, and he wants you to be happy and flourishing and be a witness to others and get yourself to heaven, and whoever is in your vocational path to get to heaven as well. So just trust in his love for you, and he'll put the things in front of you that he needs to put in front of you, and you know, at the very least, just try your hardest and he'll bless that, I think.
And also that people are evangelized through joy, so the vocation that you're called to will be the one you're most joyful in, because that's how other people will be evangelized as well.
Yeah,
you know, he's not going to call you to the vocation that you're going to be really unhappy in.
He doesn't want you to be miserable. He wants you to be happy. So he's going to call you to the vocation of joy.
Yeah.
Thing that I've found since marriage, so we obviously came to marriage, like, thankfully with really strong prayer lives, because my time in seminary and your time on net missionaries and things. I think prayer is definitely something that we could grow in further, but I think it's that case of like adjustment. As you get married, you come with your two different prayer lives, and then you have to integrate them to some extent. And then also you then have children, and like life changes so radically to when you're single or even dating, and you just do seem to have like much more time in the day at those times. So you do just have to try and think of something practical that works. And our current method of prayer is obviously we both try and maintain our own individual prayer lives and take times in the day where we can pray, but we do try and focus on praying as a family before Xavier goes to bed. And that's, for us at the moment, that's a hymn to the Guardian Angel, which we really like, and a decade of the Rosary, asking the intercessions of some of the saints, and just saying an offer, a prayer of gratitude and thanksgiving for all of these things. I mean, that is what we find manageable and like are able to kind of commit to. And even then, sometimes you're sort of like, oh, I just want to get on and clean the kitchen or something so we can get to bed. But then actually, the thing that you've got to remember, or the thing that I find I remember, is that actually praying as a family is, and especially as like, I'm the bishop of the home, as Lucy keeps telling me. In our marriage preparation, the husband was referred to as the bishop of the home, and like, because there's a certain sort of spiritual leadership there. And I think I just always have that sense when I'm feeling grouchy or sort of like I just want to get on and do something else, that actually the most important thing that I'm on this earth to do from now on till I die is to be a father and pray with and for my family. So we've currently found something that's relatively small that we commit to, and then we try and add to it, and you have to do some prayer in the morning and things.
We do everyday blessing each other. We realize that blessing has a big impact on our lives. For me, what didn't work was the monotone prayer. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, I think blessing is the most important thing that we do every day. It's a very short act, but it's very powerful. And our prayer has changed throughout the years. So before children, we had, I would say, not hours, but a lot of time to pray together. So it was liturgy of the hours, for example, that we prayed every morning. But then when children arrived, it changed, and it's more prayer of the heart. So we read the scriptures together and we reflect together. And I think this very short but very effective prayer keeps us going in the right direction.
Try and get to Mass more than once a week. We do try and go to Mass, especially because I'm working at Mass generally doing music. We do try and get to Mass elsewhere where we're not sort of half a cathedral apart.
Both of us have individual times of prayer as well as praying together each day.
As a priest, I must say the divine office each day. The rosary and praying with scripture are also a vital part of my daily prayer.
I pray the rosary daily and often use Walk With Me and the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. I pray for those I meet day by day, and don't forget those who have helped me and have now gone to God, especially family members and my sponsor who supported me when I was received into the Catholic Church in 1994.
During retirement, I still like to celebrate daily Mass. Sunday Mass is always with the parish community, but on weekdays it's just me with Cindy as reader and cantor.
For many years we have prayed the Angelus together before lunch and Compline last thing at night.
During the COVID lockdowns, we added a time of prayer together in the evening after supper and the arches. We still do this. It changes with the liturgical season or traditional devotion of the month. We're recording this in January, the month of the Holy Name of Jesus. So it's the Litany of the Holy Name at present.
We both enjoy our food and remember to say grace before meals together to thank the Lord for what he provides for us.
And I think supporting each other in your personal prayer lives as well, because especially since having a baby, that does require sacrifice on each other's part. So, you know, in terms of making time for spiritual direction, if that's in an evening and, you know, you've been working a few evenings in the week, to then say, actually, no, like, this is really important, even though it's another evening out. And, you know, I try to commit to my prayer time in the morning, and Greg gets up with Xavier and does his breakfast, and that gives me time to pray. So sacrificing for each other to support each other's spiritual lives as well, I think
It's really important.
is really important.
What's the greatest joy of marriage?
Knowing that you're not alone, I suppose, and you share the journey together. You're never alone anymore. Each aspect of your life you have to share now, and I think that's joy for me, definitely.
Confirmation of life in that what you're doing is just so beautiful. Raising a family, committing to that marriage on a day-to-day basis, and putting that at the centre of your life is just the joy of marriage. It's that life that, and a lot of it is that ordinary life. We were married on the feast of St. Teresa of Avila, who said that God is to be found in the pots and the pans of ordinary life. And I quoted that in my speech, and it's been something that's sort of like just stuck with us through all of our marriage so far, in that, like, actually ordinary life is so beautiful. Like, just like this evening doing dinner, and, you know, but giving Xavier a bath and getting him to bed and things like that. Even in just that simpleness, there's so much joy that can be like clouded out if you're always trying to pursue something. And obviously, you know, you should try and be diligent and, you know, pursue your career and all the rest of it, and better your family and things, but like trying not to lose sight of just that ordinary life is so important, because that's where God's to be found, and that's where joy, I think, is to be found.
Yeah.
Remains quite straightforward after all these years. The greatest joy of marriage is each other. Even after 4 decades, even after longer than that, even after everything that has gone into our lives together, the greatest joy is still each other.
I think the little things is the greatest joy of marriage, you know, like breakfast together, dinner together, cups of tea together, weekends together, just all the little moments and conversations, and it's just fun.
Yeah.
Like, we have the same sense of humour, it's just funny.
Well, I think you develop your own weird sense of humour.
Yeah, you develop your things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, just the little moments and having, you know, that person to share it with. I think the little things.
Yeah, I feel like because we create this unity and we are in everything together. Same spiritualities, physical, sometimes unity. I think it's very deep bond, invisible bond. And the fact that Christ blessed us, and he's still blessing us, and he gives us the strength to stay together and overcome the crises. Difficulties appear all the time, but it's the fact that God is with us in this.
The children that we've been blessed to share our lives with, and all the people that they've introduced us to as well, in terms of building up our own little community, our own little church. That's that has been amazing, really.
I moved to Nottingham just over 4 years ago, and Lucy moved about 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we got married, pretty much. And I think one of the amazing things is we've got to know so many married couples, particularly some that have been married even more recently than us, and we've got to know them really, really well, and they're wonderful couples. And I'm just looking forward to, obviously seeing all of those, but just seeing the other married, just getting to know more married couples. Marriage is so wonderful, and to be able to kind of share that and celebrate that with other married couples is so good. And I don't think, we perhaps don't shout about it often enough as a church and celebrate it enough, because people are just often so busy living those married lives that actually we can forget to take stock and just think what a wonderfully special thing we're all sharing. And even though all marriages are different and all marriages have their own challenges and joys, just to be able to share that with other people.
This year is our golden wedding anniversary. It seems a good year to attend the marriage mass. It will be wonderful to give thanks for 50 richly blessed years and to renew our vows with other couples.
10 years ago, my mother died and her funeral took place in the church where we were married 2 days after our ruby wedding. It was a lovely sunny April day, just like our wedding day. The main celebration for our ruby wedding was a pilgrimage to the Holy Land later that year.
We celebrated our silver wedding in the great Jubilee of 2000, with the first of many pilgrimages to Rome.
We're going back to Rome in May this year. Now we're retired, we can take our time. So we're going by train via France and Switzerland and returning through Germany and Belgium.
There's been a lot of talk about synod, journeying together recently. In some ways, marriage is like a synod, a walk on the road of life together.
It seems appropriate that we seem to celebrate our special anniversaries by going on a pilgrimage.
In this Jubilee year, it will be good to make a pilgrimage to our cathedral, designated by Bishop Patrick as a Jubilee church for our diocese, to celebrate the Golden Jubilee of our marriage.
It will be really nice to renew our vows. I think, marriage actually is a sacrament, and you actually have so much grace from God. And so I think just going back into that well of grace and seeing how that is renewed in us.
For me, definitely meeting other couples to share, learn some experiences. What about you?
Yeah, I think exchanging knowledge, obviously making new friends, and just sharing joy of being together as a couple.
Bye.
Bye!